bringing them coffee. It was very fun. Wait a minute, now Michael has this crazy idea that he's going to run for Congress, and I think he'd be great. And hopefully we can get him elected. He's running for Dave Minn's seat, and I think we could use him. Michael's got unending energy and lots of great ideas. And he's been doing this for a long time. So it's about time he threw his hat in the ring. So, but that's Michael.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Laureen. And Laureen didn't just come occasionally. Laureen came to 31 freeway banner hangings that we did around Orange County. 31. And she was there with me at 7 a.m., 6:45 in the morning. She'd bring the hot coffee, and we'd hang these banners. Hopefully some of you saw them over the 405 freeway at Culver and other places. We did a total of 105 freeway banner hangings between May 5th and November 6th last year on behalf of Kennedy, that then evolved into on behalf of Trump. And now that Kennedy is there as the Health and Human Services, that's a major part of why I'm running and chose to run, because of the inspiration of Kennedy and also the realization that even somebody like a Robert Kennedy, somebody who'd been a hero of the planet, somebody who had been with his family legacy, could not even penetrate the system. And so I'm going to deviate from an outline that I have here, but what I do want to say is I'm going to try to hold my talk to about 20 minutes, and then I want to sit here as long as anybody wants to ask questions. I'll go into more detail about anything and everything. There's no question that's off limits, because I want you to walk away from here hopefully feeling that you can trust me, that I'm not another politician who's coming before you to tell you all the things that you hope will happen. And as we've all learned, every election cycle, all of these career politicians come before us. They have polished speeches. They tell us everything that all the polls tell them to say. They tell us what they're going to do, and what have they done for us? Nothing. They have not only done nothing, they've done worse than that. They've looked the other way while our government and the corruption has consumed our ability to have a high standard of living, our schools, our education. We all have children or grandchildren that are struggling to live in our own communities that they grew up in. So we could go on and on about all the problems that we see, but the career politicians have not delivered on that. So let me back up. Before I go on, I do want to call out Debbie and her husband Mike and Dea. They were there on many of those bannering events. We did car caravans, we did tabling events. We've all worked together for a solid year on Kennedy and then Trump's campaign. But why I decided to run is I think that I'm uniquely positioned and qualified to do so. And I'd like to explain to you why, since few of you know me, and even those who know me and worked with me for a year really don't understand or knew of my background. So briefly, I worked my way up from a rookie salesperson to the youngest president of the division of American Standard Corporation. I was given the opportunity at 33 years old, when the company was in business for over 90 years, had once been one of the profit leaders and one of the highest quality printing companies in the nation. The American Standard Corporation bought it, put in a typical graduate from one of our elite business schools who thought any business and every business could be run from a financial statement. So they began to make all kinds of changes, forcing on us about inventories, cutting every little nickel and dime out of the quality of our process. And within a couple of years, we went from a profit leader to actually losing money, losing our market share. So this, after 3 years of losses, that person realized he was going to get fired, took a quick exit. The vice president of the operations from New York came out and said, okay, Maxsenti, if you're so smart, turn us around. So I did in a year, but I don't have the answers. And that's the way I approach most everything. I don't have the answers, but I know how to ask questions and bring together people who have different perspectives so that we can come up with solutions. So the first thing I did after becoming president of the company, I'd been there 8 years, I called a company-wide, we had 2 plants, one up here in Costa Mesa and one in San Diego. And I had 240 of our employees come together for a retreat. And I said, look, I've been here 8 years, and for 8 years I've heard it. This is the way we've always done it. I'm saying, if that's the way we've always done it, now how can we do it better? What have we learned from always doing it that way? Challenge yourself. Let's change that. We took apart the operations. A year later, the company was profitable again, and we were off and running. But I got a good corporate lesson because I had challenged this individual in a meeting when they were telling us to cut all of our costs. And I challenged him in a board meeting, and I was told, you don't know the corporate game, Maxsenti. You better learn to play it. You can't do that. Sure enough, this guy, after we got the company turned around, a year and a half later, he fired me. Brought in another person from a plumbing company to run a printing company, and 3 years later, it was sold and gone, moved out of the state, and never was heard of again. So that's one example of the way I approach a problem. Another one is I was chosen on a nationwide search by Nissan Corporation, and the highest quality printing company in Japan wanted to create a company here in Irvine that would be the highest quality graphic arts company in the world. And they wanted to blend the engineering technology of the automotive industry with the high quality of the printing precision of the Japanese with the ingenuity and creativity of Americans. I got chosen to head that operation up, oversaw the building of a plant here in Irvine on Bacon Muirlands. And one of the first things I did was say, let's do cultural exchanges. Let's exchange crews from America to Japan, and let's work together, let's bring it together. And we did. And within a year, the company was off the ground. We were competing at the highest levels in the nation for quality within 1 year of doing that. But I had an opportunity to take an early buyout of my contract because my son had come along, and I decided I wanted to leave working for a Japanese company reporting to Japan, and those hours was killer. And I wanted to start my own business so I could dedicate myself to being a father first. And so I did that. So that was just a little bit of background on some of my business experience. I built, by the way, the second largest tourism publishing business in Southern California, and did that for 20 years. But also in the community, what have I done? And I was hoping that Diane and Jeff Morris would be here. I was on Children's Hospital Foundation Board for 5 years, and on the Padrinos Board before that for 9 years. I spent 14 years dedicated to Children's Hospital, where there I did something that I think you'll resonate with. I created the biggest fundraiser in the history of the hospital back in 1995. It was called Heroes of the Heart. Heroes of the Heart was an event that became ubiquitous, the concept of local heroes. And so in 1991, after having founded that event and creating that event, I voted to kill it because the concept of local heroes had become ubiquitous. Every newspaper, every town and community was now honoring local heroes, people who've given significantly of themselves to the betterment of their community. One of the early things I did as a vice chair in an event that I killed, which is called Sportsman of the Year, is I brought women into the event. It had been a men's only event for 30 plus years. And in the second year, I said, let's give it, the award should be given to somebody local. And by the way, Jackie Joyner Kersey is an awesome local person who's given significantly of herself. Instead of giving it to Eric Dickerson and these Rams and Dodgers and baseball players and basketball players, let's give it to somebody who's here in our community, who's an outstanding representative of a person giving back. And so we gave it to Jackie Joyner Kersey. But just a little bit of background on that. But another thing in the community that I did was my son took a liking to baseball and had demonstrated a propensity to become a really good baseball player. It was a sport that I loved and played through high school. But living in Laguna Beach being the smallest high school in Orange County, was also the laughingstock of baseball. Because in 70 plus years, the high school playing baseball, it had been in CIF 4 times and won 1 game. And everybody in Laguna knew that if you had a good athlete as a child, they were going to leave and go to Mater Dei or Santa Margarita in those days. And I was looking at that when 10 years old, and I was saying, I don't want my kid to have to leave town. If we're going to help make him and we can make others good ball players and good athletes and hopefully good people along the way, what can we do differently? So I came up with the idea, and I engaged a number of other coaches and managers. I became president of the league. I started a fall ball program. I started a club team. By the time our kids hit high school, they made it. By the time they were juniors, they got into the CIF, and 10 straight years they were CIF, went from Division IX, the smallest division, to Division IV CIF champions. And that legacy still goes on to this day, where they just played in Division I playoffs, a Division I from the smallest school in Orange County playing at the biggest. But we changed the culture. It wasn't that I could do it. I had the idea, but I knew how to ask people to get engaged, to bring in all the other people and create a culture, change a culture by bringing people together in a community atmosphere. So those are a couple things I've done in the community and in the business. But my political journey changed, because as we all remember back, because everybody here is old enough to remember that, in 2007, 8, and 9, we started into what was first, quote, a recession that became a depression. And my business, my publishing business that I'd started, for 14 years, every year had been making more money. Everything was going great until 2007. We started to slip. 2008, 2009, we actually lost money. 2010, we were losing money. And it was like, something's wrong. We all knew something was wrong. We see the big banks and that being bailed out, and what were all the homeowners being done? Throughout the country, millions of people were losing their homes and the banks were being reimbursed. So I was at a dinner party over here in Spyglass with some dear friends. I'm the godfather to their son. And they were having a Laker playoff game in May. And if you remember May of 2010, if you reflect back, that was the month leading up to the vote on the Affordable Care Act. And the Affordable Care Act, that was a fairly acrimonious time. By today's standards, it's not much, but in those days, it was pretty much the worst time since we'd had the Vietnam War. And at that dinner party, it became clear that here's people, there was about 16 people there. Most of them were attorneys. My son was the only young person. He was just about to graduate in a couple weeks from Laguna Beach High. And there became another heated discussion over the politics, and it was me as a Reagan conservative against three people, one attorney, the hostess, who was my dear friend for 40 years, and my son, ripping into America and our healthcare system. And it was like, wow, what is going on here? So after the game, I got in the car with my girlfriend, now my wife. We've been together 20 years, Kelly. I got in the car and I said, I've learned 3 things tonight. 1, never have a political discussion after more than 1 glass of wine. 2, my son has gone to the dark side. And 3, why is it that our government can't deal with such important issues as our health care? I mean, we, as such a rich country, why can't we have better health care than this? And so, starting that next morning, I said, I'm going to start getting up an extra hour early. She looked at me and said, you're crazy. You're going to get up at 4:30? Because I used to get up at 5:30 to go to the Sporting Club Irvine, which you might remember, to work out. I said, yeah. So I started my journey into the political world. And I quickly began to learn of the corruption that consumed the leadership of both parties. And I had a young, very talented writer on my staff who challenged me about politics, and he just went off on me in my office when I made a comment about something. And long story short, you can go on our website. There's a little 9-minute clip from a documentary that came out of it, how a 23-year-old progressive anarchist and a 60-year-old Reagan conservative could come together. But we did. And we created a nonprofit called Rebellious Truths. And the first event I mentioned to somebody else who's from Irvine here, we actually launched that Rebellious Truths nonprofit. And our first 2 events, one was May 3rd, 2012 at the Great Park, and it was called Party Against Both Parties. So I've been working on this for a long time. The second event we had was at Mason Park down here, where we had 124 invited guests representing 6 different Tea Parties, Occupy LA, Orange County, San Diego, official representatives of all 5 of the 6 official state parties, the Republicans, Democrats, et cetera, Libertarians came. We had 124 people, and we had a group called the World in Conversation Project, which is one of the world's great conflict facilitation organizations. Have done work with Nelson Mandela and the Truth and Reconciliation trials in South Africa, to working on projects for the UN and NATO. We hooked up with them in 2011, and their founder and executive director, I still call a very close friend to this day, Dr. Sam Richards. Well, we started talking about how to bring people together to solve problems. And from that came this event at Mason Park. And we called the day we have a documentary called The Day We Came Together, but it was the Sounds of Truth Festival. And when you bring together people from a truly diverse background of demographic profiles, but you put people together, we almost all share the same common values and wants out of life. It's these political parties and the people in control of our government and authoritarian positions that keep us apart. And we can't solve these problems if we stay apart. We've got to come together. So I could go on at length about this journey in the political world, but it's taken me to work one of my best friends to this day that I work with, who's my economic advisor, is David Walker, the former Comptroller General of the United States for 10 years. I stay in his home when I'm back in DC all the time with his wife. David Walker, he had a project in 2012 that invited me to help him on that Ross Perot underwrote. I traveled the nation during the summer of 2012 helping there. I helped launch, and for 4.5 years I worked with Tom Campbell, a 5-term U.S. congressman, to help launch the Common Sense Party. I worked as one of the state leads and national leads to help launch the Forward Party. Then I became one of the state leads to help launch Kennedy. And so I worked for 15 years on the outside of the system, thinking that principled people from the outside could start parties to bring people together, that could break through into the system to help us fix these problems. And after 15 years from the outside, when Kennedy couldn't even break through, after Ross Perot couldn't, all the way to Kennedy, it was like when we won the election and the vote on November 5th, I prayed and thought about it every day for 2 months. What could I do with all the learning of my 40 years in business and in the community and 15 years in this political film, my connections throughout the nation in the independent movement and within all of these different organizations, what could I do most effectively to help us at this crucial time in 2026, which is the 250th anniversary of our country. But it's a very crucial midterm election, and it's crucial for many levels. Many of the things, first off, let me back up. When we elected Donald Trump, we didn't elect a dictator, we didn't elect a monarch or our king. We elected our next president. And as great of an opportunity as we the people have to get back to the Constitution and help get a country back to service of the people, that's all we have is an opportunity. And with Kennedy head of health and human services, we've got a great opportunity, but they need to be held to the Constitution. They need to have laws codified so that these executive orders and these kind of things, they're being done because Congress hasn't done its job. Congress is responsible for our budget. They're responsible for the oversight of all of those committees and organizations that have failed us. And you'll hear me reference when we talk more about the establishment. And I define the establishment as just quite simply everybody who has benefited personally at the expense of the American people, people of the world, or our planet, while they looked the other way or took money out of just pure corruption. But either way, we need to clean up our government and get it responsible to the people, clean up as much of the waste as we can. But the reason these laws, like to clean up the corruption stuff, have never gotten done is because you've got career politicians. And 70+% of them in Congress right now are all trained attorneys, some of our most brilliant minds in our country. But at the same token, they are trained to be an advocate. And an advocate is trained to do one thing, to win for their side, even when they know their side is wrong, guilty, etc. They're trained how to manipulate the jury, the witness, the judge, and public opinion. They're trained how to lie, hide facts, manipulate facts to win. They don't know how to say, we have a problem and we need to bring people together and how to solve it. They only are there to win. And the other 30%, most of them are good people who may have gone off with the best of intentions. They might have come with a business background in that, but most of them have come out of privileged schools, privileged backgrounds, and at best they're voyeurs to the problems. They don't understand the depths of the problems. And I want to back up a second because something I didn't share with you on my background and my journey. This is a difficult thing for me to talk openly about, and few people know about it. But after learning of what was going on, committing myself to this effort in 2012 and 14, I sold my business to an investment banker. 2 years later, they bankrupted it, which wiped out my wife's and my retirement. Then I had a choice to make. Stay in this fight and figure out a way, despite having lost our entire retirement, or go back to work in the corporate world to make money. I made the hard choice alongside of my wife that it was more important for me to stay in this fight for our country because I was gifted. I was one, like probably most of you, maybe not all of you, but most of you. My father had fought the entire duration of World War II. I would be on the floor at the reunions as a little boy listening to the sacrifice of those survivors of his unit that was 90 miles west of Berlin on VE Day. He had been in the Battle of the Bulge. He had been into France in a two-man glider shortly after D-Day. I listened to their sacrifice. I was in that first lottery as a football player at San Diego State. I went down to play football there. And I was but 4 digits away from going to Vietnam. By the time I had already graduated high school, 2 of my classmates had already been killed in Vietnam. By the time I left San Diego State after 4 years, many of the guys that I started there with as freshmen were no longer there. They had been killed in Vietnam, and those who had come back were severely wounded, many of them, and were never the same. And at 60 years old, I had a big custom home in Laguna Beach. I was traveling all over Europe and Asia, living a great life, a life that exceeded any of my family's expectations or mine. And I was reflecting on that and saying, what have I had to do to give back to our country and the sacrifice that I've witnessed of so many others? And that's why shortly thereafter was when this happened on May 10th, 2010, and I started the immersion into it. So now, 4 years later, when we learned that we've lost our retirement, I was reflecting on, I've never had to sacrifice anything. And that's when I decided to stay in this fight. I started driving Uber. I gave over 4,000 drives for Uber. I started driving for a limousine company, but we had conflict with the owner and I was his #1 driver. But I had too many political meetings and I couldn't take drives, and I had too many political conferences and I was going to be gone for 3 days. And so he and I agreed I would just leave. I brought in somebody else to help, and I started a little driving service. I took early retirement, took my pension early. My wife started doing dog sitting, and we did everything we could to not put upon my family or any of our friends to help us. It was like this was our private matter to deal with. God puts us on different journeys to learn different things. But what it did teach me, it immersed me in the reality of what the vast majority of Americans are having to deal with. And that I'm forever grateful for. Because without that experience, I would not be here today. I wouldn't be the man that I am today, and I wouldn't be here hoping that I can earn your trust to help me get elected so I can go back and work with other people that are committed to the same principles. I'm actually one of the 5 leaders and founders of the United Independent Movement. We're working to elect people throughout the nation to get elected. I'm, as a Republican, that's another story. I'll tell why I got back to it, but if somebody asks the question. But we've got to take back our government and take the resources of our government and apply them to fixing these issues. We've all been paying a tremendous amount of taxes, and yet inflation and cost of living is drowning most people, particularly our children and grandchildren. They don't have the opportunities that I had and probably most of you had. So that's why I'm doing this. And the hardest ask I've ever make, it was easy to ask for Children's Hospital. That was an easy ask. It was easy to go and sell a great product and ask for people's orders. The hardest thing for me to do is to ask for your help. I need help. We've got a year from this coming Tuesday for the election, but we're going up against an immense group of people with almost all the resources in the world. But we can bring this country back. Our founders did not give us a perfect union, but they gave us a path towards one. And together we can get back on that path. And we need to do it now. We need to do it in a hurry. And so I'm asking for your support. Whatever you can, if you've got contacts, you want to host another house party, I need to meet people. I've got a lot of needs. But one of the most important things that I'll ask of you is if you can reach into your pocket and help me with a donation on our website so that we can expand our reach, so I can start to pay some of the great volunteers that I need to step up into a full-time position. I need a couple of people there, and we've got a long journey ahead, and I'm prepared to stay in this fight the entire way, and we have a good opportunity to win. District 47 is a unique district. Only 3,000 voter registrations separate the Democrats from the Republicans. Only 3,000. It's an even 35% split. The other 30% of the voters are registered just under 24%. 23.9% are registered no party preference. Many of them are friends of mine that I helped register to the Common Sense Party, the Forward Party, the American Independent Party, but they're looking for people that will go to Washington who are not corruptible, who are people who will stand up, who are not going there for a career. I'm obviously not going there to start another new career, not at my age, but I'm going there to open the door for others behind me and to work with a group of people committed. There's Tom Massey, there's other people already there, and many more that are working right like I am today to do this so that we can create a caucus in Washington that will actually be able to force the changes and in the corruption laws, in the way we do our budgeting, the way we run our government, so we can open up the door and begin to solve these problems by bringing people together with innovative, creative solutions who know how to solve problems, not just win for a side. I'm not there to win for a party. I'm there to help us go back to the Constitution and create a modernized government that can serve efficiently the needs of our people with the vast resources available to us. So I'll ask for your support. And with that, I'd like to say I'm sure I talked way too long. I'm glad I didn't start the clock. But now any question and every question I'm open to. There's nothing that's hide. So please ask away. What can I do to answer questions for you?
Who do you think would be your main opponent?
Well, Dave Minnan will obviously be the Democratic candidate. It is right now, District 47 is listed by both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party as one of the #1 top districts. The Dems want to hold it, and we want to take it back. And I believe that the ability to connect with the disenfranchised voters and those people who want solutions can be the difference.
But you would be running for the Republican Party.
I'm running for the Republican Party, correct.
And who else in the Republican Party do you see as trying to become the candidate for the Republican Party?
No one else has, nobody else has declared yet.
Okay.
Nobody else has declared yet. But almost anybody well, there's two people that have declared that a couple of younger people have ran a couple of times before without much of a background in either of them. But most likely there will be at least one or two Republicans that'll run, and they're career politicians.
Yeah.
You know, and again, a career politician goes back there with one goal. It'll tell us everything we hear about, one goal: to get reelected. To get reelected. And they will do what the party tells them to do, and the money tells the party what to do. And we got to get beyond that. We've got to have people there that are saying, I'll stand up to anybody. I want to solve the problems, and I will reach out and bring people in. There's a lot of great tools available that we can truly make the people's, not a voice from the outside that's in an echo chamber that they do not respond to. We all know, no matter what the issue is, 70–80% of Americans can want a solution on something, and it has zero impact on what Congress actually does. Zero. But if you have money involved, big money, they get a huge direct correlation to the output of what little Congress does. Congress has abrogated its responsibility on almost every aspect, from wars, our budget, our health, you name it, and they are supposed to be responsible for it. And all they want to do is blame each other, and nothing gets solved, and our country is in dire straits for many of our people.
Michael, do you feel like other opponents or other people who are going to run, typically how many people run for a district, like on both, for both parties?
Well, we have, in California, we have an open primary. So it's unlimited number of people can run for the primary. Through the primary process, which is the vote June 2nd next year, 2026, the top 2 run off in the general election of November 5th next year. So there's a 6-month window that it's just 2 candidates. But anybody can run, and you've got to come in the first or second place. Dave Min.
You could have even 2 Democrats then, or 2 Republicans, is what you're saying. I didn't realize it was an open situation.
Yeah. No one will probably run from the Democratic Party because the Democratic machine will make it real clear and nobody will run, because if you ran against Dave Min, you would be forever ostracized from the party. You're gone. So Dave Min will be the candidate, and he will win first or second place in the primary. They will pour, and they've announced it, they will pour whatever money is necessary for Dave Min to hold that seat. We are not, no matter who, we are not out spin them. So what we have to do is beat them based on the right candidate. Somebody who can connect with the people who are the 60-70% of our voters who want solutions, who are tired of being told, don't believe what you see. I mean, most of the Democrats understand that their party has left them, just like the Republican Party had left most of the Republicans years ago. They see that. They know that they were being told to believe that Biden was a fine, great candidate and running our country. They were told to not believe their eyes, just like we were all told not to believe our own eyes. So, but they don't want to vote for somebody that they think is somebody who is, if you will, a Trumpster, and somebody who is, the stories, if you read the media that they're told about what Trump has done or will do in the new Republican Party, because I'm not running as part of the old guard Republican establishment. I'm running as part of a common sense populist movement inside of the Republican Party to create a big tent for the people, to truly create a party of the people. The Democrats' party has now truly become the party of the moneyed interests and the uniparty. First time in the history of America, in a national convention, you had people from the other party on the stage promoting their candidate that they selected. By the way, they're trying to save democracy, they say. Oh, how well was that? How they selected both the first candidate, Biden, who they told us was this wonderful, clear thinker, still a great leader. Then they gave us Harris. Okay, come on, folks. We all saw that. So their idea of saving democracy is a lot of things, but it's not accurate. But so Dave Min's going to be on one side, and we can win. We're not going to outspend them, but we can win with a candidate that people will trust, that people believe will work for us, the people, not for a party or the money or for Trump alone. I'm not going there. As much as Trump has opened the door for us, he's our president. That's all. And we need to hold him accountable to the Constitution and the people like everyone else. And that's our job. And I will do that. But we need to codify the changes that Kennedy and others are making. That has to be done by legislation so that it's not done by executive order. Because if it's done by executive order and the next president comes in and doesn't like it, and it could be in the same party, it could be gone. And we're in this constant pendulum of back and forth. And what people and businesses need, and we all want, is stability. We want a government that runs with good stewardship of our money and our resources and delivers for the people what we need, from good quality health care, good quality institutions that truly do oversee the quality of our food, do oversee the quality of our medical care. So we need real solutions. And I encourage you to go to my website and look at the issues. I go through 8. I've got 4 issues up there for immediate impact of lowering the cost of living and how we can go about that. 4 particular things there, and then 4 midterm moderate ones for a little longer. You had a question in the back?
Just a quick question. Since the Republicans have the House,
Don't worry about being quick.
Since the Republicans have the House, Senate, and the presidency, is there anything that they're doing right now that you would be opposed to, that they're trying to push through?
Yeah, well, let's talk about the big bill.
Yeah, the big bill.
Let's talk about the big bill. We do need to expand our social services safety net. while we go through a transition, because there's a lot of people that have made a lot of decisions, many of them not good decisions, but they can't just be cut off. But when we say we're going to cut spending and we go through Doge, we're remodeling the house and the remodel has just started. How can you expand on defense spending and other areas and have a total budget that's actually going to increase it? That needs to be really analyzed. So that budget needs to be really looked at hard. How can you cut the size of our debt when you increase it by potentially record numbers? So that would be one. Another one would be this area of how we've taken people who are here illegally and moved them out of our country with no due process. One of the most important things that I've talked about for years, for 15, we cannot become that which we're trying to replace. We can't get back with retribution. We need to approach it like Nelson Mandela did. Tell us the truth. Let's get to the truth. The truth will allow us to move ahead. We don't need to be trying to do exactly what others did to us. We know of the censorship that they applied to us. We know of the lawfare that went against us. But we can't turn around and do the same things to them when they're out of office that they did to us.
Mike, do you think they're being sent out of the country without due process?
Well, there's a couple of things that can be done about due process. And I hope, Dave, I'm not done with your question. Well, that's okay. It's a follow-up part of this. This issue of due process is a crucial issue. Under Obama, they extradited or moved out of the country 4 million plus illegal immigrants. But there is a process that's legal through Homeland Security that takes only a few minutes in a courtroom that they go through, and they were deporting. And I know this is a new thing that Trump has asked Homeland Security to do, is to start using the legal process of giving people their 5 minutes in court if they truly are somebody who is not deserving of being taken away for whatever reasons. So there is a process, legal process that we have that's in place that was used to extradite 4 million people under Obama that we could accelerate dramatically and do here. But give them their minute in court, because we don't want to send, and Benjamin Franklin and some of our founders talked about this, it is better for us to send 10 guilty people free than to put one innocent person in prison for life. And so we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard and follow our own laws and constitution and figure out ways to legally, within the confines of the Constitution, do the things we need to be done. Does that answer your question? Thanks. And Mike, did that answer yours?
How do you feel about they came into the country illegally? They are breaking the law.
Yeah.
They have broken the law.
Yeah.
Those are the ones they're sending out, so they get 5 minutes.
But so should we break the law?
Explain that they came in illegally? What
Yeah.
are they getting to do?
Yeah.
But Obama's 4 million all didn't get a
I
day
know.
in court. That's what the infuriating thing is. And the
Well-
Democrats now are saying every individual one deserves their time in court.
No, the difference between a time in court, which is what the Democrats are talking about, which would be grind us to a halt. There is a legal process to extradite thousands and thousands of people illegally that are here, but they give them a chance to prove that they're illegally here. We cannot become that which we're trying to replace. We can't break our own laws because they broke a law. 2 wrongs ain't going to make it right. They deserve to have a chance. If they're here legally, prove it to us in court, and you've got literally, you're coming up, your number's coming up, prove it, or the judge says you're gone, you're out. And they go through it. And they go through hundreds and hundreds a day in each courtroom. And that's how they could do it legally.
Right? You're saying they're not doing it right?
Not yet. The law is there, and it has been done right by others previously.
Obama did it correctly. That's
In some ways he did. Yeah, he did some things in that way right.
You said sometimes. That was the key word
Yeah,
you used.
yeah.
Sometimes.
I don't have enough facts to say always. And one thing you'll hear from me is I will try never to say always, or because we don't have access to the information. So based on what we know and based on what I learned, yes, there is a legal path to extradite big numbers of people quickly, but at least give them their 5 minutes so we don't send somebody off out of the country who isn't here illegally, who has a legitimate reason to be here and
Can
stay.
you do it on location at 5 minutes, or they gotta?
I don't know
have
the
a day in
details of that.
court?
No, it's not a day in court like we think of going to a courthouse. It's done in Homeland Security offices that are all around the country. It's not in a big courthouse, not the federal court and all of that.
Sounds fair. 5 minutes isn't too much. to get-
Yeah, give them a chance. If they're here, prove it real quick. And if you're not, you're gone.
A little bit of empathy, maybe for some people.
Yeah, and and one of the most important things we do need to have is compassion for our fellow human beings, and not to become what we saw used against us. That's the worst thing we can do.
Opposed to it.
Yeah. So, question?
Me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you think the financial problem is solvable?
The financial problem. Why do I think
Why do you
it's?
think it's solvable? Our revenues are 5 trillion. We spend over 7 trillion. More, if you just add Social Security, Medicare, and then the military equivalents, plus interest expense, it's well over 100% of revenues. So it means every dollar defense and everything else is borrowed.
Yeah.
Why do you?
First off, I believe almost every single problem on earth can be solved when people come together and work together with solutions. To the budget specifically, none of us have run a business. I've ran businesses, big corporations and small. You have a budget. We can't go on and sustain the kind of spending we had. First and foremost, you got to do an audit on every program and policy that's out there. This is where legislation in the legislative body has not done their job. They haven't overlooked this. Their stewardship job is terrible. They've not done it at all. You've got, in government, you've got programs that every year just ask for more money. Well, we haven't succeeded on it. They don't have evidence of that, and they just keep giving them more money. In business, you would never do that. You audit, prove your worth. Every time you come up with a new budget, prove how you spent the last budget. So the government spending, and the defense hasn't passed a budget, an audit rather, if they ever have. And so you start by doing audits, you start by holding people accountable to results, and you start paring back and reallocating your resources to make them effective. And it's not something you can just do overnight. You can't solve the budget, but you've got to start with audits, budgets, restraints. No budget, no pay for Congress would be a great one way to start, which says you don't pass a budget on time, which they haven't done in I don't know how many years. And they won't pass it. They won't pass any of these laws because they're all career politicians, whether they came out of the legal side or they're there from the other side. They're there to get reelected, and they're not there to do their job, which is to run our government with a good stewardship and for the people. And that can change. But it can change only when we start electing career people into politics who are citizen leaders, who are not there as a career politician, who are not there looking for the next career notch and just get reelected. They're there to do a job. They're there to serve the country out of a commitment to service, not to get reelected. So the budget problem can be solved. Is it easy? No. Tough decisions have to be made, but they can be made and they must be made because it's unsustainable to pass on this debt to future generations. Drives up the cost of living, drives up all of our interest rates. It's killing us.
I'd just be surprised. They can't even keep the budget flat. The idea you're going to cut 40% out of it.
Well, you're not going to do it overnight. You can't do it in one budget.
They can't even do it slowly.
But you got to, well, if never gets solved, if you have that attitude, never, you've got to take that, how do we do it? And there's ways to do it. I've cut budgets. I've reorganized businesses that were losing money. You do it by reorganizing, by evaluating everything that you're doing, and you fix it, and you make it more efficient, and you make it better. And you bring the people who are responsible for it into the process. Passing legislation, why we have so many. I went off to a progressive summit where there was 62 organizations there, all with letter writing campaigns against the government. This was only a couple months ago. And I talked to over 30 of the leaders of these different groups, and they're all there because of the unintended consequences of some piece of legislation that was passed from a top-down perspective. Instead of bringing people into the process, we've got a problem. Who's it affecting? We need to bring those people into the process so that there's solutions are created and crafted from the people who are going to be affected by them to the people who have expertise from the outside of it, and you bring people together in dialogue and you solve the problem and you figure out solutions. You don't just from a top down and then say, oh, it didn't work, give it more money. Didn't work, give it more money. You know, you can't do that in business, and you shouldn't be doing it in our government with our taxpayer dollars. And that's what's been going on for far too long.
How do you think the cabinet members are melding? The cabinet that Trump's put together, do you think they're melding?
Well, I would look at it and say, I really don't want them to meld. I want a team of rivals modeled after Abraham Lincoln that was successful in helping us navigate the Civil War, and unfortunately for his assassination, they could have been a lot more effective afterwards. But
maybe I used the wrong word, meld, maybe.
A team of rivals, what Lincoln did, what Kennedy was willing to do with Trump, and what they've started is a team of rivals. You don't want people to be thinking alike. You want a team of people who are experts in their area, who have the integrity to say what they think and listen and debate and discuss. And that's what Lincoln did. He pitted and brought into his cabinet his 4 biggest rivals in the candidacy. And he made them the top 4 positions in his cabinet. And then he was sneaky in some ways. He would tell some of them on one side, he'd tell one person on one side, so-and-so said how wonderful you were about this. And the person who thought he hated him, go, oh, he said that? And he'd go to the other side and say, so-and-so said how well you're doing. And he had ways to bring people together to get them to be candid, but listen to each other. And then figure.
Talk in those cabinet meetings, and he seems to be doing that.
Yeah.
Really well.
He's trying to create it. He's trying to do that. And that's why Kennedy and why we were willing.
He doesn't skip anybody.
That's
he goes
right.
around that table.
That's exactly what we need. So the question was meld? No. I want a team of rivals that is honest, who will work together, who will listen, and a leader who will listen to them. But at the same token, he might be doing the cabinet meetings right. And I'm grateful as heck for Donald Trump. But at the same token, he needs to be held accountable, like everyone else, to the Constitution and to everything. So.
Foreign affairs.
What's that?
Foreign affairs. Can we shift from domestic to foreign for a second?
Yeah, sure. Foreign policy.
Well, what do you think about? Personally, I'm terrified. I think we're just a little mistake away from a major conflict.
Yes.
Which one?
Well, there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
And that really is going to have an impact on us and what we can do, because we can't do what we have been doing and saying, okay, the bill for armaments, for Navy, for Air Force, and all of those things don't matter. They matter more now than they've mattered in a very long time. And I think that's going to be a big issue.
Well, I think that you were asking 2 questions. One would be about the money being increased spending in the Defense Department. And I'm all for making us a strong defense and taking the approach like Reagan did and what Trump does. You lead from strength. You lead from strength. However, you can't have a military who will never allow a budget, an audit to be done. And we know of extravagant, wasteful spending that cannot be allowed to go unchecked. And Congress needs to do its job to ensure that our government, our military, is the best in the world. But we are spending what I think is the next 8 or 10 countries combined spend on military. We've got something like 800.
Most of those countries, let's be honest.
Well, yeah, but we've got like no. When you're talking about Russia, China, India, etc. But
we are not spending more money than China, I guarantee.
no, we are, according to all the numbers I've seen. Maybe you've seen some different numbers, but either way, our military needs to be strongly supported. However, they also need to be run like a good business and be efficient and with our money. You can't just allow them to spend billions and billions and billions of dollars and never be held accountable. So, but to the other part about the wars, one of the things that I support Trump on is particularly the approach to Iran. And I might be mispronouncing. I've been told it's Iran is the proper way to pronounce it, so I apologize for that.
I don't care how you pronounce it.
They can't have a weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
But Reagan, what Trump is doing is basically modeled after how we brought down the Soviet Union. We helped collapse it from within without a war. And that is the approach that we should be taking, to help Iran, to help collapse it by taking away the groups that they fund that are being used as proxies for wars. We need to help strangle off and cut off the Iranian resources.
The money that gets them.
Yeah. So collapsing governments, helping the people collapse a government, we should do, but we should not engage our military in these kind of endeavors. It's not our place to be the bully of the world, and it's not on the backs of the American people. We rebuilt all of Europe, Japan, and the rest of the world after World War II, and that's where this issue of tariffs, people don't understand is, wait a minute, it was okay to have these tariffs to help all of Europe and the world rebuild. Now, folks, it's time to put America first and help us rebuild here and force them to drop their tariffs. The goal should be zero tariffs with all industrialized countries, zero tariffs. And we need to force that to total free markets on those countries that are still way back and hurting. We need to continue to help them, but that's an insignificant part of our overall economy and budget. So, but collapsing government, not using our military, our sons and daughters, and our money to be a bully around the world. So with that, folks, it's almost 6 o'clock. I know we promised to end it at 6. I do believe in efficiency. We've got time for 1 or 2 more last questions. I know I've talked way too much. What's that?
My watch isn't working. What time?
My clock says 5:56, and so, but
My watch stopped at 5.
Diana, Phil, Maureen, questions?
Whoever counts the votes is gonna make the winner. That's my big
Yeah,
thing.
that's
Good point.
When you have
scary.
Good point.
counting of votes after an election, which is, what did we lose? Orange County lost, what, 3 seats?
We
won
have
on
one of
November
7.
5th, And we lost in whoever counted them.
I've been a part of the election integrity process and movement since 2012, and without going into in our limited time, we have some great groups in Orange County. Orange County is one of the targeted districts and counties throughout the nation working on how to fix our election counting process. And it's a very detailed thing, but if you're interested in getting involved, there's some great groups doing some great work right now in Orange County, which I'm counting on them because
should
that's,
all be
yeah,
involved
because that's a huge issue.
To raise enough votes to get it on the ballot. You can only vote if you
There's a
apply.
bill that they're trying to pass over at the state, Gavin Newsom, where illegal aliens can count the votes and that you can have votes coming in up to 7 days after. So
Well, that's where it all
Yeah.
goes wrong.
This voting season, we refer to it now as the voting season, has to end. But like I gave you my card, and everybody, please take a card. If you are interested in getting involved in that, let me know. I can hook you up. There's a couple of great groups here working on this in Huntington Beach, Tustin, Irvine, Newport Beach, that are all working together on our Orange County Registrar of Voters to hold them to a far new and higher standard.
So I worked on the election security, and the one thing that I have that makes no sense to me is once your ballot is separated from your envelope that you have the signature on, there's no way to tell whose ballot is afterwards to check
That's
the
right.
authenticity. If you can get that changed, that would make me feel better.
I
about
can't
election
myself,
security.
but I'll hook you up with the groups that you can help get involved in. They're right now documenting things, putting it together. There's hundreds of people, and I mean hundreds, that are working diligently right now on that very issue in Orange County to get it solved. And I'm counting on that.
Signature on a ballot makes no sense.
Oh yeah, and I'm
The envelope that gets thrown out.
I'm counting on their success to help me win this election, because going into the finals, I don't want to be leading on the close of election night and then 10 days later watch Dave Mint somehow magically end up winning by 11,000 votes as he did against Scott
That's a
Bowe.
big issue, and people, we need to be involved.
It's a huge issue. It's a huge issue.
There's no reason why I can't see
Absolutely.
after the election what counted on the
Absolutely.
picture of my ballot.
There is a reason. the Democratic machine that controls our state and much of the national is purposeful how it's done that way. It's not by accident this stuff hasn't happened.
How is the majority of people don't see it as just corruption right there?
But now the question is, how do we fix it? And I'm about adjacent possible. What is the first and foremost step we must take in Congress to dealing with the national that affects us too? Is we have to elect independent thinking people who will go there, who are not corruptible, who will go there and do what they say and will keep us informed and engage us in the process. And I will use AI agents to make sure that people are involved. I will engage for the first time Citizens Assembly in the national effort in our district so that people's voice is not just an echo that gets ignored, but an integral part of helping shape and craft legislation that will be introduced into Congress. But I'm not going there naive to think I can do this alone. But there's a lot of people like myself around the country that are underway this very day doing what I'm doing. And I'm asking you as we close this off at 6 o'clock, I'm going to make one last appeal. The hardest ask I make is I do need your help. Give me what you can, if it's your time, if it's your contacts, and if you can open up your wallet to help me, go online to our website, Maxsenti4congress.com. It's real simple to make a donation. Anything and everything will be appreciated, and I'm counting on you wanting to help get our government out of the hands of the corrupt leadership that has controlled it for so long so that we can begin to solve these problems for our children and future generations.
And Michael,
Thank you.
locally, we need to start with you locally for it to move on, and that's where it starts, with you.
Well, I can only start with all of you. So, thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, everybody.